This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. We would put super somewhere in the title, but now we all know that's just code for much hyped and mediocre. Here's what we got for y'all. Tonight, as we head into a second impeachment trial for Donald Trump, we look at how the former president is already losing ground in the court of public opinion. Plus, as the vaccine rollout keeps on rolling, a lot of folks are sticking to their pandemic precautions, even after getting the shot. But first, here's what you need to know right now. Let's start off with a bit of good news, shall we? New cases of COVID-19 across the country are dropping. Daily reported cases fell below 100,000 for the first time this year, and hospitalizations dropped for the 26th day in a row. New numbers from the CDC show more than 9 million people in the US have been fully vaccinated. This week, several pharmacies are set to start administering the vaccines too, which means we could expect a little speed boost for the vaccine rollout. Meanwhile, the FDA is reviewing data for Johnson & Johnson's vaccine candidate to decide whether to approve emergency use authorization. The decision isn't expected until February 26th, but these are all steps in the right direction to get another vaccine option on the table. But what's that phrase we've been hearing a lot lately? Ah yes, cautious optimism. Especially with a few even more contagious variants of COVID-19 out floating around, public health experts are urging Americans to avoid large gatherings and stay masked up.
I'm asking everyone to please keep your guard up. The continued proliferation of variants remains of great concern and is a threat that could reverse the recent positive trends we are seeing.
On that note, today we learned the AstraZeneca vaccine is not reliably effective against the COVID variant first found in South Africa. Keep in mind that vaccine hasn't been approved in the US. So far, all vaccines that are approved have shown protection against at least some variants.
The two things that we can do is A, make sure we adhere to the public health measures, B, get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can. That's the best defense against the evolution of variants.
The US has a higher child poverty rate than many developing countries. That's according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And a few proposals on Capitol Hill are trying to tackle that problem. Right now, the Child Tax Credit, also known as the CTC, gives households up to $2,000 a year per child. President Joe Biden proposed temporarily expanding the CTC as a part of the current pandemic relief package in the works. That means each household could get up to $3,600 a year per child. The move would also make the payments fully refundable. But the changes wouldn't be permanent, expiring after a single year. Democrats say going forward, they'd push to make the expanded child tax credit permanent. A little over a year ago, then President Donald Trump was acquitted in his first impeachment trial. Now the Senate is gearing up for a second trial, but this one is for a very different charge: incitement of insurrection for the deadly Capitol riot that came after a Trump-led rally on January 6th. The proceedings will start Tuesday, centered around one question to start: is the trial constitutional? During the trial, we'll see hours of debate to try and answer that, followed by a simple majority vote. Several legal experts, including a high-profile GOP lawyer, say impeaching a former president is constitutional. But many Republican senators say it's not. There is one case, 145 years ago, where the Senate held an impeachment trial for an official after he left office, but it's never actually centered around a former president. On Wednesday, each side will be given up to 16 hours for presentations. Impeachment managers can decide where to debate the issues or call witnesses. Trump's attorneys have said he won't testify in the trial, despite a request from House impeachment managers. The trial will pause Friday afternoon to observe the Jewish Sabbath. Things will pick back up Sunday afternoon. A conviction in this case obviously wouldn't remove Trump from office since his term is over and he's already out of there, but the Senate could potentially bar him from ever running for public office again. The thing is, 17 Republicans would need to join all 50 Democrats to reach the 2/3 majority to convict Trump. That would mean a big swing from where we've seen most Republicans line up on this question already. As the Senate impeachment trial for former President Trump starts up, there's a lot of buzz around what folks on Capitol Hill think, naturally. But we already know how the public's view of Trump and impeachment round 2 has changed from the first go-round, and it's a huge contrast to what we've seen with other past presidents. Now, Trump has always been a lot more unpopular than popular, but after the Capitol attack on January 6th, Trump's floor of support kind of fell out from under him. He left office with only 29% approval. Meanwhile, public support for Trump's impeachment has grown from the first Senate trial about a year ago to this current trial. A majority of Americans actually support impeachment this time. Trump's growing unpopularity post-election and post-presidency is a big divergence from what we've seen with other past presidents throughout modern history, who accepted election outcomes gracefully and actually saw their reputations improve after leaving office.
This really speaks to how important it is to lose graciously and to exit with a certain level of dignity. What you usually see with presidents in the aftermath of an election is that through their gracious concession or through their departure, there is some recovery in their numbers, is usually the way it is described.
Laura Brown, a political scientist and author at George Washington University, says Trump missed his chance for a post-presidency boost with his handling of the election loss, and clearly put off even members of his own party.
So it was the Republicans who were arguing that the president should accept the results and move on. But Trump chose not to do that. He chose to continue believing the most lunatic fringe of his campaign advisors. And all of that really took away his opportunity to be a gracious loser and rebound his reputation.
The drop in Trump's already low floor for support definitely raises questions around his political future. Only half of all Republicans say he should play a major role in the future of the GOP. And with support slipping even in his own party, one big question going into the Senate trial is how many Republicans will finally turn on him. When you're back, I'll dive into some doom scrolling and sacrifice my screen time report to tell you what's trending. Don't say I never did nothing for y'all. We don't have flying cars yet, but you might be able to pay for an electric car with digital money inspired by a meme in the near future. Here's what's trending online. Tesla quietly hit the gas Monday morning when the company announced it's investing $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. The company said in an SEC filing, "We expect to begin accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment for our products in the near future." The announcement led to a spike in cryptocurrency prices, including Bitcoin and Dogecoin, which is somehow now the world's 10th largest cryptocurrency. The move means some added legitimacy to Bitcoin, which has gone from something the Lost Boys from the movie Hook might have imagined to real money. Was that reference too obscure? Tesla CEO Elon Musk has tweeted about his own interest in crypto in the past, and as recently as last night, he posted a so-called instructional video to understanding Dogecoin. Now, try explaining that to your oldest relative. A car brand and the boss attempted to mend our divided states of America during the Super Bowl through gravelly platitudes about unity, which everyone hated.
We just have to remember the very soil we stand on is common ground.
The rustic cowboy musings of Bruce Springsteen paired with cinematography just wasn't a hit with folks still reeling from an insurrection, I reckon. And the messaging and the messenger were a little too left for some on the right. One of the creators behind the 2-minute ad said the idea's been around for the last 10 years, and the company looked at making meaningful and emotional connections with millions of viewers. In case you're wondering, yes, collective disdain does count as a meaningful and emotional connection. There's nothing more immediately polarizing than talking about the GOAT, the acronym for greatest of all time, not the animal. And with Tom Brady winning his 7th Super Bowl championship and 5th Super Bowl MVP at 43 years old, it was time to argue all over again. So who's the GOAT in pro sports? Is it Serena Williams with her 23 Grand Slams? What about Michael Phelps and his 23 medals? What about Simone Biles, the most decorated gymnast of all time? Bill Russell had 11 championships. It's all pretty subjective, obviously, but Brady's accomplishment after an odd NFL season impacted by the coronavirus pandemic is worthy of some praise. The Bucs are only Brady's second team in his 2 decades-long NFL career, and he said he's coming back for more next year. Oh, and the answer is Serena Williams. She's the GOAT. And I'm turning off replies now. I look forward to not having to think so much about the kind of face mask I'm using, bumping shoulders with folks at a music venue, or letting my niece laugh at me in person for once. But a new survey shows many Americans are planning to keep up with some of the same COVID-19 health guidance even after the pandemic is over. Newsy's Lindsay Thies tells us more.
Mike Nicholson and his family are looking forward to getting back to normal when the pandemic ends. But now, that normal may include some COVID-19 health precautions.
Just the social distance piece, wearing masks.
He's not alone. A new national survey of more than 2,000 Americans by the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center finds many plan to keep up with public health precautions, even after the pandemic passes. Nearly 3/4 of respondents say they still plan to wear masks in public. 4 out of 5 will still avoid crowds, and 90% say they'll continue frequent hand washing and hand sanitizer use.
The risk is still very real in the community, and we can't let people ease off on the precautions that we know have worked thus far.
Dr. Ian Gazenhauser thinks as restrictions lift, these practices will also provide a sense of comfort and control as pandemic fears linger.
We've seen flu numbers way down. We've seen hospitalizations way down. We're seeing the precautions of masking and physical distancing and hand hygiene absolutely working for flu.
We haven't had any, illnesses in this house. For the whole of last year, no colds, no flu.
As for Mike Nicholson, it's not just happening at home. His fitness classes have been virtual or at limited capacity. He's still considering how that will look post-pandemic.
If everyone does their part, we'll get around that corner sooner than later.
For Newsy, I'm Lindsay Thies.
Some security experts say the obnoxious fencing around the Capitol lacks imagination. Come on, you would think the same thing, right? After the Capitol riot on January 6th, the Capitol Police Chief called for permanent fencing around the complex, which is still there. But now, top security and architecture experts say they have other ideas on how to keep the Capitol secure. Newsy's Patrick Terpstra has more.
The question we're debating is what to do long term.
Architect Thomas Vonier says there are better ways to protect the Capitol than a fence.
It's unimaginative. I don't think it's necessary.
Capitol Police now want to build a permanent fence, an idea rejected for decades as too restrictive, unpopular even after the insurrection.
We don't want the Capitol grounds closed down.
We asked 4 top architecture and building experts whether you can protect a building like the Capitol without a fence.
It definitely is possible.
We don't have to lock everybody out.
Vonier would turn the Capitol complex into a pedestrian-only zone, permanently closing Constitution and Independence avenues to traffic. Similar to how Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House became a plaza after the Oklahoma City bombing, giving Secret Service an easier way to patrol the area.
Everyone who enters that area is watched and scrutinized for what they're wearing, how they're behaving, what they're carrying.
Instead of a fence, smart landscaping can create natural, subtle rings of security around high-profile buildings. Hostile vegetation, for example.
I think we've all had that experience. You're trying to get into some place and there's thorny plants. They may look great, right? But they can make it pretty uncomfortable for you to get through.
The experts shared ideas for how to ensure a mob that gets past outdoor security never gets inside. Harden windows with tough but invisible ballistic film so they can't break.
The whole purpose is hit it, shoot it, whatever. It's not coming out.
Install locks able to instantly secure doors remotely before an attack. And hidden steel gates able to quickly seal off sections of a building.
You hit a button and it raises up and it blocks the doors.
After an attack on Canada's parliament in 2014, an analysis found the most critical security lapses weren't physical. They needed better law enforcement coordination and intelligence gathering, which may have made more of a difference at the U.S. Capitol than a fence.
It wasn't that the intel wasn't there. It wasn't acted on. And that's a very important distinction.
I've heard people say when they see this temporary fence, they just sort of have a sinking feeling.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the razor wire.
Sure, it's all of that.
Congress's decision on a permanent fence will wait until at least March, when a security review is complete.
The idea that this is meant to be an amenity for the people and a place for the people's business is what should be at the forefront.
A goal that may not have to compete with security. Patrick Terpstra, Newsy, Washington.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. I'm still bored enough during this pandemic to respond to each and every one of you. Since their role in the GameStop surge a few weeks ago, the Wall Street Bets forum on Reddit has attracted a lot of attention from novice investors, journalists, politicians, and now QAnon. Adherents to the conspiracy theory have encouraged each other to buy silver and GameStop stock to topple the US economy. Newsy's Tyler Atkinson explains.
QAnon followers have been talking about getting in on the trading action started by Reddit's Wall Street Bets, a disruption that rattled the stock market.
The GameStop, the kind of Reddit, populism, if you will, of the traders was a real boon for QAnon folks.
The most recent frenzy is focused on silver trading. One Q influencer with 62,000 Telegram subscribers urged them to buy physical silver and create, quote, a giant short squeeze that will make GameStop look like it's a small world.
The silver people, it felt to me from what I was reading, they were more the radicals that were looking to topple the economy than to get rich quick.
Another chain message circulated by QAnon followers urging them to buy physical silver to instantly overnight collapse the banking system had been viewed at least 270,000 times by Monday. QAnon followers also bought GameStop stock with a goal to, quote, hold these hedgers accountable. One QAnon follower who said they bought GameStop stocks at $300 a share wrote, "Don't get in unless you plan on a long hold until we make them go broke." In a QAnon Telegram chat with 21,000 subscribers, users told each other to purchase GameStop stocks and, quote, hold the line, noting people from all over the world are buying GameStop to help America fight this evil.
They're just constantly looking for the next way to connect their belief system to present day events. They're always looking for a way to tie QAnon into what's going on in the world right now.
QAnon interpreters dug up years-old posts from Q, an anonymous central figure whose posts drive the movement, and began linking them to the ongoing trade craze.
Q would repeatedly say game over and stuff like that. And then Q also said, you're watching a movie. So they combined GameStop and Game Over, and you're watching a movie with AMC. And they're like, look, Q foretold these stocks.
QAnon could stay attached to this trend for a while, as Wall Street Bet's antagonistic rhetoric toward Wall Street bankers neatly aligns with QAnon's.
It can absorb something like this, which is a kind of a mediated collective action, right? That was, directed at elites. They really saw a way to kind of, stick it to the elites, which is part of what QAnon has believed.
Tyler Atkinson, Newsy, Chicago.
Many of us may be familiar with the auto tag feature on Facebook. You post a picture and the platform can identify who's in the picture using facial recognition. This is part of the reason why I'll never have the opportunity to run for public office. But privacy experts say millions of images collected online by photo sharing apps are fueling artificially intelligent surveillance. National reporter Usher Qureshi shows us a tool to find out if your images have been harvested.
The day after the siege on Capitol Hill, facial recognition use spiked. Reportedly, the FBI and local law enforcement used the technology to identify rioters.
This is a technology that enhances the abilities of police officers to the degree of almost superheroes.
Liz O'Sullivan is the director of the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, or STOP, a New York-based civil rights and privacy group.
Over the summer, we saw protests over racial justice in the form of the Black Lives Matter protests, and FBI agents were able to identify people based off of other artifacts that they were leaving online, including articles of clothing that they had purchased on online retailers like Etsy.
This week, researchers at STOP launched Exposing.ai, a new facial recognition detection site. It allows you to match images from the online photo sharing site Flickr and see whether your photos have been compromised.
Flickr, while they were under Yahoo, created a database of more than 100 million different photos that had been hosted on Flickr under a Creative Commons license. and they used this as a starter database for artificial intelligence.
Those databases have been used by researchers, law enforcement, and governments to enhance biometric identification technology.
In fact, some of these databases and some of these data sets have been used by Chinese companies and are slightly and in some ways implicated to the human rights violations and the ongoing genocide of the Uyghur Muslims.
O'Sullivan says most people don't even realize they're contributing to the AI learning.
Artificial intelligence researchers and developers are so starved for new data sources that they often resort to some unsavory practices, some of which involve scraping the internet, regardless of the terms of service that may exist to protect your privacy there.
In some cases, it is against the law. Facebook is set to pay out $650 million in a landmark class action settlement to about 7 million of its users in Illinois for allegedly violating the state's strict biometric privacy law. Facebook denies it violated any law.
Facebook has elected, for now, not to sell their facial recognition tool to police officers or to the military or to the Chinese government. But there's absolutely nothing stopping them from doing it.
On Wednesday, Clearview AI, a controversial startup, was found to have violated Canadian law when it collected highly sensitive biometric information without the knowledge or consent of individuals, engaging in what the government investigation deemed to be illegal mass surveillance. The tech company also faces multiple privacy lawsuits here in the U.S. for scraping billions of photos from social media and other public sites used by law enforcement.
People were arrested and charged with crimes that they did not commit because some machine told the officers that they were the ones behind it.
O'Sullivan says it's high time that companies, governments, and researchers are held to account. She says people deserve to have more control over their privacy, data, and images. In Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi reporting.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for more In the Loop. Same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.